think Special Counsel Mueller's investigation is a witch hunt?
Ma'am, I'm going to not speak about any of the 3 investigations that I have been a participant in today.
Does the President have the authority to fire Special Counsel Mueller on his own?
I came here today to talk about my qualifications to be the Secretary of State. I'm not going to weigh into the active investigations that are going on in the House, the Senate, and the Special Counsel's investigation.
So in my mind, this is really the ultimate that we have seen in the Democrat obsession with the Mueller investigation. Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo bombarded with questions regarding Mueller during his confirmation hearings for Secretary of State. Joining me now to discuss is Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor. Charlie, am I nuts? I mean, here's a guy who's going to be dealing with existential issues like nuclear warfare and international terrorism. And the question is it okay for the president to fire Mueller? What's wrong with this conversation?
If it were not so terrifying, it would be comical. But it really is, as you say, we're talking about nuclear standoffs around the globe right now. We're talking about terrorists doing everything they can to kill Americans and to kill our allies, and to have them, the Democrats, continuing to obsess over this Russia stuff, the Russia probe, really does reveal how unserious they are.
Well, do they realize, I mean, is there any consciousness inside the Beltway from these people how ridiculous and out of touch they seem? I mean, this is the Secretary of State. This is not Donald Trump's personal lawyer who they're talking to. I think most Americans are so much smarter than the people inside the Beltway. I can't imagine that won't at some point seep into their consciousness. Maybe I'm hoping too much.
I think that these people around here, they're so invested in the idea that they're going to be able to impeach Donald Trump over some sort of Russian collusion fantasy that they are completely out of touch. They have no idea how ridiculous they look. And it's a real trap for them because, as you point out, you have a very serious guy wanting to talk about very, very serious issues. And actually we have Republicans doing this some too, but it's mostly Democrats. You have Democrats wanting to pass legislation telling the president who he cannot fire. Meanwhile, they're refusing to fulfill their own constitutional responsibility to determine who he can hire, such as a Secretary of State, right as we are on the cusp of what could be some sort of very drawn out, or at the very least, a highly serious military action overseas.
Here, that's precisely to the point, too, of the craziness or the ridiculousness of what we saw today. We found out from Mike Pompeo today that the U.S. military killed hundreds of Russians who were in Syria. These are former special forces guys working. Maybe they were working as contractors, but they were Russians. Now, how does that play into the scenario that Trump is too close with the Russians?
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about soldiers that are citizens of our greatest global enemy on earth. And for these people to not realize and focus on that and the seriousness of that, and quite frankly, the seriousness of getting through these nominations and getting these people confirmed, because obviously we need them in place. But for them to instead be absorbed, it's all politics. It's because they think that the Russia collusion thing is going to help them in an election, and that's why it's all they care about, and they're focusing on that.
At the risk of giving too much attention to the Mueller investigation, I just want to talk briefly about this raid of the personal assistant and lawyer for Donald Trump and what they did. I mean, essentially now prosecutors have virtually all the information that this man had about Donald Trump, both his professional and his personal information. And if anybody believes that they're not going to sift through that on some kind of fishing mission looking for something somewhere at some time that they can pin on Donald Trump, I think they're out of touch. I don't know what you think. Go ahead.
And whether they're going to use it to actually pin it on Donald Trump in court or just leak it to the press. We know that they're capable of both. But we're talking about the most serious constitutional issues that we have ever dealt with in this country. The idea that you would have a sitting president have his attorney-client privileges. I mean, this is a guy who invokes executive privilege in everything in all of his activities, current activities as president. And this was exactly the kinds of issues that the founders were very, very wary of and very, very interested in when they built the system the way they did, to set up a set of checks and balances. And we're running Mueller and Democrats in Congress. They are running right through all of those roadblocks without any concern about these very, very important issues. And it's pretty scary if you stop and think about it.
Charlie Hurt, couldn't agree with you more. Washington Times opinion editor, and on the opinion page of the Washington Times, you'll hear views like that you just heard from Charlie and many more. Thank you, Charlie. Great to hear from you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, David.